Hey guys, what is up? It is time to dig in a little bit to our training, figure out why it is that we do what we do. As you can expect, we're going to talk a little bit about pacing today. And something I've noticed as I've worked with high school kids for a while is that most of you don't know why you pace or train the pace that you train, or you don't even train correct paces. And so we're going to discuss that a little bit. And hopefully this video will help you out in that process. So stick with me and we're going to get something started. All right. All right. Over to the slideshow. Take a look at this with me. Stay with me. We're going to get you guys training more efficiently. We're going to get you faster. We're going to try to reduce some injuries, and we're going to ultimately extend your career as runners. That's what we're aiming for. So first thing we want to talk about is data collection. As a runner, one of the most important things you can do is to collect data about your runs. You want to be able to look back at it, evaluate it, see if it is what you think it is. It's amazing how things can change over time, and your perception of things changes over time. You need hard data to evaluate. This is going to be useful for your coaches. It's going to be useful for you. I got a lot of recommendations you can see here on the screen. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Strava. I know they just went to a paved wall thing, so which is kind of annoying. But if you can make that work for you, that's a good place to go. Garmin Connect, a good place to go. If your name is Coach Brandt and all you have is a Timex watch and you're like, forget those GPS thingies, all right, use Google Maps and a GPS watch. You can get your data. People have been doing it for 20 years. You can even just go off of driving your car around. People are doing that for like 100 years. Get some data, write it down, log your stuff. Before I move further, if you have a log, I want you to pause this video. I want you to go get that log, and I want you to make sure that you have it available so that maybe you can evaluate your data as we talk. So pause that video. All right. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about where this all comes from. This all started on the illustrious website, letsrun.com. I went through an article that Wejo, Weldon Johnson, the founder, wrote. It happens to be this one right here. About why I sucked in college. And he wrote quite a bit and kind of explained his college progress. But when he was in college, he was a decent runner, a pretty good runner, like low 30s, 10K kind of guy. But when he got out of college, he learned how to train better. And the big thing I took away from here is faster does not equal better. And this is one of the big things that he learned and that I learned going through my college experience is that when I ran my easy days. I ran my mileage stuff way too fast. I've noticed with high school kids watching your guys' logs, seeing what I see on Strava, many of you are running your mileage way too fast. And so this opened my eyes to that concept. And that brings me to the second thing that I wanted to point out, and that was Matt Fitzgerald's book, 80-20 Running. And so after kind of going through this process, learning a little bit from my own personal experience and from kind of having my eyes opened by Weldon Johnson that like this isn't like a special thing. This is across the board. I picked up Matt Fitzgerald's book, 80-20 Running, and he opened my eyes to Dr. Stephen Seiler's research. This is the main article or main paper that he published. But Dr. Seiler is a guy. He's a research scientist, and he lives in Norway. And he researched initially cross-country ski racing, because that's huge in Norway, and moved on to runners and then as well as cyclists and looked at their training logs, looked at their performance. And what he found is that the majority of professional level, high-quality running, cycling, cross-country skiing, it doesn't matter, endurance athletes, they all had a similar yearly balance of 80% of aerobic-based activity and only 20% of thresholds / intervals / really hard stuff, including their racing. Now, we're going to kind of see how that's supposed to break up throughout the year, but this was a breakthrough in endurance training science. And so back in his book, Matt Fitzgerald writes this book, 80-20 Running, based off of Dr. Seiler's research. Now, he's not the only one to come up with this. As you kind of see how we progress into how this works, it starts to look a lot like what Arthur Lydiard was doing back in like the 1950s. And what it means is we need to have we have to work on our aerobic capacity first. And we need to build a significantly strong aerobic system. And the aerobic system is the most trainable system in your body. It's the one that can produce the most growth. It's the one that produces the most energy. And it's the one that we use most in a 5K race or any race beyond 5K. And Arthur Lydiard was the first guy to really focus on not running fast all the time, but to run a lot of miles and run them at a more aerobic pace. Now, he didn't have all the science that Dr. Seiler had and that Matt Fitzgerald writes about, but it gave us the perspective, and it's been working for a really long time. So I keep saying this term aerobic, and I want to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. And I want to kind of show you guys a little bit about how we evaluate your running log. So if you have your running log handy, I want you to take a look at that too, kind of as we talk. You need to learn how to evaluate your intensity, and you don't run the same pace all the time, and different paces affect different parts of your body. Here I have it broken into typical heart rate zones based off of your max heart rate. And let me give you a quick caveat about max heart rate. Do not take any kind of formula and use that to calculate a max heart rate. Those are not very accurate, and max heart rate is very variable between individuals. So my maximum heart rate is somewhere around like 200, 203. Yours might be 220, 225 because you're a little younger than I am. But I've also met younger people who max out at 180, 190. So you need to make sure that you actually perform a max heart rate test. You could talk to a coach about how to do that. You could use a heart rate monitor during a 5K race and see what that is. There's some options for that. And keep in mind, I have, you can see here in the different columns, I have this laid out so that you can see it's not just based on heart rate. It kind of gives you an idea of the intensity of your running. Level 1 would be kind of like your shakeout pace, pre-meet type stuff, like real easy, basic jogging. Your level 1 would be like, a fast walk. All right. Not something that we're going to use a lot in running, but, to kind of the first thing when you wake up in the morning to kind of get your body moving, that's a good pace for that. Not a huge part of that 80%. Zone 2, this is where the majority of your running has to happen throughout the year. Zone 2 is your easy aerobic pace. A lot of coaches will call it conversation pace. This is a pace, you'll notice it's only 72 to 82% of your max heart rate. That is not 70% to 80% max effort. All right, you're looking at what you probably are perceiving that effort to be around 60%. I'm going to show you a way to calculate what those paces are based off of your 5K ability right now here in just a minute. But if you're using a heart rate monitor or if you're looking at perceived effort, these are your easy runs. They're not actually like completely easy as you can go, but it's that normal everyday steady effort and I think a lot of you guys think that you're in this zone, but more often you're actually in zone 3. And zone 3 is that threshold marathon pace that's a little bit faster, and it's recruiting muscles a little differently. It's recruiting some different body systems. All right, you need to train that aerobic system first, and as you start to do that, you're going to be able to increase your mileage, and more mileage is what makes you faster. Zones 3 and 4 and 5, those are the zones that make up only 20% of your yearly effort. So 20% of the miles that you run in a year, 20% of the time that you're running should be in zones 3, 4, and 5 approximately. 80% of it should be in zone 1. So how do we actually calculate and how those paces should be? And really it kind of depends. All right, it depends on where you're at with your recovery, what the purpose of the workouts are. All right, it's going to depend on how you're feeling. It depends on the weather. If you go down to the beach and it's flat, it's going to be a little different than if you're up in the mountains. All right, it's going to depend on a lot of things. To get a really good generic idea, I think Dr. Jack Daniels' running formula, which is going to be available through an app called the V.O2 app on your phone, those are good ways to calculate approximate paces. So I use this app all the time to give me, even as a coach, approximate paces for workouts and things like that. And if you type in your 5K, so say your 5K is currently, and remember this is for current ability, not PR, not what you hope it to be. This is what I can actually do right now. If your current 5K ability is, say, a 1747, all right, pretty fast, halfway decent 5K pace. Your easy runs should, for the most part, be somewhere between 7 and 7:30 a mile, maybe even a little slower, maybe up to 7:40 a mile. That's what the VDOT calculator is going to tell you. I want you to evaluate your running. If you're a 19-minute 5K runner, you don't want to be running 7-minute miles and 6:50 miles. If you're at 18-minute shape right now, 18:30 shape right now, you should not be running 6:50 a mile, 6:30 a mile for your training runs. You're starting to train in that tempo and that threshold zone. You're starting to train a lot in that 20%, and it's going to limit your ability to peak. It's going to limit your ability to add miles, and ultimately it's going to limit your ability to perform at your best. So if you were going to, as you get better, as your 5K starts to get a little faster, maybe you went from 17:47 to 17:30 down to 17 flat, you can put your time in, and you'll see that easy pace starts to get faster and faster and faster. It will give you a range of easy paces. That means you kind of have to look at, how am I feeling today? What's the course look like that we're running today for practice? What's the coach want out of me today? Do we have a race tomorrow or not? And you can start making some of those decisions. How do I feel really often is going to be the best one for you. If you're feeling tired, run at the slower end of that, and you're still going to get most of the benefit. So I wanted to share that with you guys because as a coach, I love seeing people who really, really want to work hard. I love seeing people who are like into running and they want to put in their effort. But what I find is that you soon get into the idea that to run faster, I have to train faster all the time. And really, it's not about training as fast as possible. It doesn't make sense to go out and run a super fast 5K every day to try to run a 5K cross country race. All right. What we're trying to do is differentiate that running. And as Dr. Seiler's research shows, as Matt Fitzgerald explains in his book, as you can see, there's websites out there, the 80-20 Running Project. You're going to see that 80% of that work needs to be at an aerobic pace. That is your big body system that is going to create the energy for you, and that's the one you need to train. If you're training in that near that threshold or close to that threshold, that marathon pace all the time, you're not getting the benefits that you think you're getting. So evaluate your running, log your running, check what you're doing, and start making some good decisions about your training. This is when you get to talk to your coach and say, okay, what do I need to do here? If you're coaching yourself, this is going to help you move along. Most of you guys have halfway decent coaches. Most of you guys have guys that I respect, and they're going to continually help you try to learn. And you need to sort of submit to that and say, okay, this is what we're doing. We're trying to do, we're not crazy. This is research-based stuff. And so hopefully you guys enjoy that. And I will see you at some point, maybe at camp next year. Maybe we'll get it done. All right. Take care, guys.